Have you ever noticed that some people seem to attract problems while others attract opportunities? Have you ever wondered why two people with similar backgrounds end up in completely opposite places in life? The answer goes against everything you've been taught about how the world works. The truth is you're not living in an objective reality shared by everyone. You're living inside a giant mirror that reflects with frightening precision who you believe yourself to be. Each failure, each disappointment, each closed door isn't bad luck, isn't universal injustice, isn't lack of opportunity. It's the exact reflection of your deepest beliefs about yourself. And as long as you keep trying to change the reflection without changing what's being reflected, you'll remain stuck in the same frustrating cycle. But if you understand how this mirror works, if you master the secrets I'm about to share, you can completely rewrite your reality. I'm not talking about superficial positive thinking. I'm talking about a law as precise as gravity, taught by Itzhak Bentov, which few know and even fewer apply. Stay until the end because what you're about to discover could change everything. Two people were born in the same city, attended the same school, grew up in neighboring districts. Both faced financial challenges in childhood, watched their parents work hard to put food on the table. 10 years later, one of these people woke up in a comfortable apartment, surrounded by possibilities and achievements. The other still struggled with the same difficulties, trapped in a cycle that seemed to have no end. What separated these two destinies wasn't luck, wasn't opportunity, wasn't privilege. It was something much deeper and more powerful, the internal reality that each of them constructed. The truth that few understand is that the outer world functions like a giant movie screen. Everything we see projected on that screen comes from within us, from an invisible projector located at the center of our consciousness. This projector works non-stop, 24 hours a day, translating our most intimate beliefs into tangible experiences. The person who prospered didn't have a different film to project by chance. She consciously or unconsciously altered the content of what was being projected, changed the fundamental beliefs about who she was and what she deserved to experience. Many spend their entire lives trying to change what appears on the screen. They want more money, so they work more hours. They want better relationships, so they try to change the people around them. They want more health, so they experiment with diets and exercises. All of this can bring temporary improvements, but the core remains untouched. It's like trying to fix the characters in a movie by scratching the cinema screen. The problem was never with the screen. The problem was always with the film being projected. Each person inhabits a particular universe, built stone by stone through the interpretations they gave to the events of their life. Two siblings can grow up in the same house and build completely opposite universes. One interprets their parents' strictness as proof they're not loved, carrying that wound into all future relationship. The other interprets the same strictness as a sign they're important enough to deserve discipline and attention. Same house, same parents, completely distinct parallel universes. The difference wasn't in the objective circumstances. The difference was in the internal narrative that each one chose or absorbed. What makes this even more fascinating is that these internal narratives don't remain only in the realm of ideas. They materialize, take form, create real and measurable consequences. The person who carries the belief that they're not worthy of love will, without realizing it, sabotage promising relationships, interpret neutral gestures as rejection, attract people who confirm their belief. And then they look around and say, "See? I knew no one would stay with me." But what they don't realize is they're not observing an objective reality. They're observing the precise reflection of their internal reality. The universe doesn't make judgments. It doesn't decide who deserves and who doesn't. It simply reflects. If you see yourself as a victim of circumstances, the universe will present you with circumstances that confirm that position. If you see yourself as the creator of your experience, even in the face of real limitations, the universe will find ways to validate that creative power. It's not magic, it's not superficial positive thinking. It's a law as precise as gravity, operating silently in every moment of our existence. The question that naturally arises is, if this is true, why isn't it enough to simply decide to believe in better things? Why does change seem so difficult? The answer lies in the depth of these beliefs. They're not superficial thoughts we can swap like clothes. They're structures consolidated over years, decades, sometimes carried from previous generations. They're the invisible foundations upon which we build our entire perception of reality. Tampering with these foundations requires something beyond willpower. It requires understanding how this mirror works, and that's exactly what's beginning to reveal itself. The mirror that reflects our consciousness isn't located in any physical place. It's impossible to touch it, see it, or break it with a hammer. Nevertheless, it's always present, always active, always showing with absolute precision who we truly believe ourselves to be. Unlike ordinary mirrors that reflect only the surface, this mirror captures the deepest layers of our identity. It doesn't let itself be fooled by pretty words, mechanically repeated affirmations, or superficial desires. It responds exclusively to what's engraved at the core of our consciousness, to the convictions we carry even without talking about them. Many people try to negotiate with this mirror. They repeat positive affirmations in the morning, visualize goals for 15 minutes, create wish lists and expect the mirror to reflect these declared intentions. But the mirror doesn't negotiate. It doesn't listen to words. It reads vibrations, frequencies, the energetic signature of what we truly believe to be true. A person can spend hours saying, "I am prosperous," while carrying a deep belief of scarcity, and the mirror will reflect the scarcity. Not out of cruelty, not because of a system failure, but because the mirror is incapable of lying. The functioning of this mirror becomes clearer through an example. A man decides he's going to change his financial situation. He reads books about prosperity, writes down ambitious goals, starts acting differently. But every time he looks at his bank account, he feels a tightness in his chest. Every time he thinks about asking for a raise, an inner voice whispers that he's not worth that much. Every time an opportunity appears, he finds sophisticated reasons not to take the risk. What this man is doing, without realizing it, is standing still in front of the mirror asking the reflection to change while he maintains the same posture, the same expression, the same energy. And then he gets frustrated because the mirror continues to show the same image. The mirror of reality functions with frightening precision. It doesn't reflect our dreams, our plans, or our hope. It reflects our fundamental identity, that version of ourselves we accept as true in moments of silence, in the early morning hours, in the internal conversations no one else hears. A person can talk about confidence and success all day long, but if deep down they see themselves as someone who always fails at decisive moments, the mirror will organize situations where they can confirm that self-image. Not as punishment, but as service. The mirror is always trying to show us who we are, so we can finally decide if we want to be someone else. What complicates this process even further is that most people have never looked directly at their true self-image. They live with a vague idea of who they are, constructed through fragments of others' opinions, unprocessed traumas, successes and failures poorly interpreted. It's like trying to see your own face without a mirror. The person knows they have a face, can touch its features with their hands, but has never seen clearly how it all organizes itself. And so they walk through life, projecting an image they've never consciously examined, receiving back reflections that confuse and frustrate them. The mirror also has another crucial characteristic. It's impartial. It doesn't favor anyone, has no preferences, doesn't care about sad stories or elaborate excuses. It simply reflects. This means that a person born in privileged circumstances can create a life of limitations if their self-image is one of incapacity. And a person born in challenging circumstances can build an extraordinary life if their self-image is one of power and capability. The mirror doesn't consult birth certificates, diplomas, or bank accounts. It consults only the frequency we emit through our deepest belief. So the inevitable question arises: if the mirror reflects so precisely, why does life seem so random? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why doesn't effort always bring results? The answer lies in the difference between action and identity. Many people work hard, genuinely strive, try to do everything right. But they're working from an identity of lack, of "I need to prove my worth," of "I need to compensate for my failures." The mirror doesn't reflect the effort. It reflects the identity behind the effort. And it's in this understanding that the real path to transformation begins to take shape. The attempt to modify the reflection without modifying what's being reflected is the most common and most frustrating mistake someone can make. It's like spending hours fixing your image's hair in the mirror, expecting your real hair to fix itself. It seems too obvious to be a real mistake, but billions of people wake up every day and dedicate their energy to exactly that. They look at life, see something they don't like, and immediately start manipulating external circumstances. They want more money, so they work more. They want better friends, so they frequent different places. They want peace, so they move to a different city. And they're perplexed by the fact that no matter where they go, the same patterns appear. The outer world is just a messenger. It arrives bringing us news about our internal state, and we, instead of reading the message, attack the messenger. A person lives through toxic relationships and blames bad luck for only attracting the wrong people. Another never manages to prosper financially and blames the economy, the government, lack of opportunities. Yet another constantly feels disrespected and blames people's generalized rudeness. In each case, the focus is on the messenger, on the external manifestation, and what's sending the message remains untouched, continuing to generate the same results indefinitely. Changing from the outside in is like trying to dry the floor without closing the faucet. You can scrub, dry, wring the cloth 1,000 times. The next moment, the floor is wet again. You can even take pride in the effort, the dedication, the persistence. You can say you did everything within your reach. But as long as the faucet continues open, the result will always be the same. The faucet, in this case, is the self-image, is the fundamental identity, is the set of beliefs that define who we believe ourselves to be. And closing that faucet doesn't mean suppressing or denying. It means finally looking at it, recognizing its existence, and making the conscious decision to change what's being released. Real transformation begins the moment we stop trying to convince the outer world to be different and start examining what within us is generating that world. This doesn't mean external action isn't important. It means external action without internal change is just movement in circles. A person can change jobs 10 times, but if they carry the belief that they'll always be underestimated, they'll find bosses who underestimate them in each new place. Another person can change relationships repeatedly, but if they believe love means suffering, they'll attract partners who validate that pattern in each new attempt. What makes this process particularly challenging is that fundamental beliefs operate silently. They don't announce their presence. A person may not even consciously know they carry the belief that they don't deserve success. They just feel an inexplicable resistance whenever they're close to achieving something great. They feel an impulse of self-sabotage that seems to come from nowhere. They find themselves creating problems at crucial moments without understanding why. This is the belief operating, keeping external reality aligned with internal identity. And as long as the person continues attacking external symptoms without looking at the internal root, they'll remain trapped in the same cycle. There comes a moment in every conscious person's journey when they need to make a radical choice. Continue blaming the outer world, continue being a victim of circumstances, continue waiting for something out there to change so they can finally be happy. Or accept complete responsibility for their experience, recognize that everything appearing in their life is somehow connected to what they carry inside, and begin the real work of internal transformation. This choice isn't easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things anyone can do. because it means abandoning the comfort zone of victimization and entering the dangerous territory of personal power. Personal power is frightening. It means we no longer have excuses. It means we can no longer throw responsibility onto parents, society, the economy, God. It means we're the creators of our experience, and if we don't like what we're living, we need to change the creator, not the creation. This truth can seem heavy, even oppressive, but hidden within it is the greatest possible liberation. Because if we're responsible for the creation, we also have the power to create something completely new. And that power doesn't depend on external permission, doesn't depend on favorable circumstances, doesn't depend on anything except our willingness to look within and do the work that needs to be done. It's at this point that understanding deepens even further. This internal work we're referring to isn't abstract or too mystical to be understood. It's based on a principle as fundamental as the laws of physics, as reliable as mathematics, as predictable as the sunrise. This principle says the following: everything we see around us is a reflection of our internal state. Not some things, not just the good things or just the bad ones, absolutely everything. The quality of our relationships reflects the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves. Material abundance or scarcity reflects the beliefs about worthiness we carry. The respect we receive reflects the respect we have for ourselves, not as punishment or reward, but as an automatic and impersonal reflection. This principle operates without exceptions. It doesn't take breaks, doesn't take vacations, doesn't get distracted. Each predominant thought, each rooted belief, each deep identification translates into external experience. The person who internally sees themselves as incompetent will attract situations where their incompetence becomes evident. Not because the universe wants to humiliate them, but because the universe is responding to the implicit request they make at every moment through their self-image. It's like tuning a radio to a specific frequency and then complaining that it only plays that type of music. The solution isn't to yell at the radio. The solution is to change the frequency. What confuses many people is that they look around and see others living realities that seem unjust or illogical. They see bad people prospering, good people suffering, effort unrewarded, laziness unpunished. And they use these observations as proof that the mirror principle doesn't work. But this confusion comes from looking at the wrong mirror. Each person's mirror reflects only their own consciousness, not someone else's consciousness. Another person's external reality says nothing about you. It says everything about that person. Each person lives in a particular universe, governed by the laws of their own consciousness. Fully accepting this principle changes everything. It means that if something appears repeatedly in your life, it's not coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's not a conspiracy of the universe against you. It's information. It's the mirror trying to show something that needs to be seen. The person who always feels betrayed is being invited to examine where they betray themselves. The person who always feels abandoned is being invited to look at where they abandon their own need. The person who never feels valued is being invited to investigate how they devalue their own qualities. The external pattern is always a clue about the internal pattern. This perspective completely eliminates the victim position. And that's uncomfortable. Being a victim has its secret advantages. We can blame others for our problems. We can wait for someone to come save us. We can feel justified in our unhappiness. But the price of these advantages is total powerlessness. The victim has no power to change anything because, in their perception, everything is caused by external forces. The mirror principle rips away that comfortable crutch and says, you have absolute power over your experience, but you need to exercise that power in the right place, which is within you. Many resist this idea because they confuse responsibility with guilt. They think, so you're saying that everything bad that happened to me was my fault? No. Responsibility and guilt are completely different things. Guilt looks to the past and seeks punishment. Responsibility looks to the present and seeks power. Recognizing that your reality reflects your consciousness doesn't mean you purposely caused everything that happened. It means you have the power to change what will happen from now on. And that power doesn't depend on anyone changing, on anything aligning, on favorable circumstances. It depends only on you deciding to change what's being reflected. The mirror principle also explains why superficial techniques rarely work. Positive affirmations, visualizations, rituals, all of this can have its value, but if there's no real change in fundamental identity, the mirror continues reflecting the same image. It's possible to memorize affirmations and still carry contrary belief. It's possible to visualize abundance and still feel scarce inside. The mirror isn't fooled by performances. It responds only to what's genuine, to what's truly rooted. And it's precisely at this point that the masters who mastered this principle begin to reveal their deepest secrets. The masters who mastered the mirror principle discovered something revolutionary. Instead of allowing external circumstances to define their identity, they completely reversed the process. They consciously decided who they wanted to be and began to inhabit that identity before any external evidence appeared. This isn't pretending, isn't self-deception, isn't ignoring reality. It's something much more sophisticated. It's the deliberate creation of the image that will be reflected. It's understanding that we can choose the film that will play in the projector, instead of simply accepting whatever was loaded there by past experiences. Most people build their identity by looking backward. They examine what they've already done, the results they've already obtained, the failures they've already accumulated, and say, "This is who I am." A man looks at his failed attempts to start a business and concludes, "I'm not good at business." A woman looks at her ended relationships and decides, "I can't keep anyone." This past-based identity becomes a prison, because each new day is just a repetition of what already was. The mirror continues reflecting the same image because no one changed what's being projected. The masters do exactly the opposite. They look at the desired future and ask, "Who do I need to be to live this reality?" They don't wait for reality to change to then change their identity. They change the identity first and trust that reality will reorganize itself to reflect the new image. But right after assuming this new identity, these masters encountered a silent challenge called time. More specifically, the interval between planting the seed and harvesting the fruit. They discovered that after changing internally, external reality doesn't reorganize itself instantly. There's a gestation period, a necessary interval between internal cause and external effect. And it's in this interval that most people lose faith, return to the old identity, and then complain that the principle doesn't work. They planted the seed on Monday and gave up on Thursday because they still hadn't seen it sprout. The gardener knows that after planting the seed, they need to water, protect from excessive sun, keep pests away, and especially wait. They don't dig up the seed every day to check if it's growing. They don't yell at the earth demanding immediate result. They understand that natural processes have their own rhythm, and their function is to maintain favorable conditions until what was planted naturally emerges. The modern world doesn't teach patience. It teaches expectation of instant gratification. We click a button and food arrives. We touch a screen and information appears. We send a message and expect immediate response. This mentality contaminates the relationship with the mirror of reality. People change internally for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, and get frustrated because life hasn't completely transformed. During this interval, something peculiar happens. The old reality is still present, still produces its effects, still generates the same circumstances as before. And simultaneously, small signs of the new reality begin to appear. They're subtle at first. An unexpected comment from someone. A small opportunity that arises. A different internal sensation. The masters learned to recognize and celebrate these first sprouts, however small they may be. And it was precisely in this observation process that they discovered something even deeper. The mirror doesn't reflect emotions, it reflects the content of thoughts. A person can be terrified, anxious, trembling with fear, but if their thoughts are directed toward the desired result, the mirror reflects the result, not the fear. Another person can be calm and relaxed, but if their thoughts are constantly focused on what they don't want, on what they fear, on what they want to avoid, the mirror will reflect exactly that. The secret isn't in controlling emotions. The secret is in directing focus. The human mind has an immense power of concentration, but most people use this power against themselves. They spend all day thinking about what they don't want. They think about the debt they don't want to have, the loneliness they don't want to feel, the failure they don't want to experience. And then they're surprised because these things keep appearing. The mirror is literal. It doesn't interpret intentions. It only reflects what receives consistent attention. If you spend 80% of the day thinking about problems and 20% thinking about solutions, the mirror will mainly reflect problems. Not because you want problems, but because that's where your focus is. The masters trained the discipline of repeatedly redirecting focus. Each time they notice they're feeding thoughts about what they don't want, they pause and consciously change the mental channel to what they desire. It's not easy. The mind has momentum, it likes to follow known trails. But with practice, this redirection becomes natural. Directed focus doesn't mean ignoring real problems. It means not giving them more power than they deserve through excessive attention. And the last secret the masters mastered was perhaps the most liberating of all. They realized that most people live trapped in what can be called the reverse cycle of creation. These people look at current reality, see limitations, see problems, see lack, and then react to it. They reinforce through words, emotions, and actions what already exists. They see scarcity and talk about scarcity. They see difficulties and share their difficulties. They see failures and relive their failures. And with this, they guarantee that the mirror continues reflecting exactly what was already there. The masters did the radical opposite. They decided to ignore current evidence whenever it contradicts the future they're creating. Not as denial, but as strategic choice. They take any small positive manifestation, however minor it may be, and give it total attention. They amplify, celebrate, talk about it, feel gratitude for it. And with this, they signal to the mirror that this is the desired direction, this is the pattern that should expand. This inversion of the creative cycle requires tremendous courage. Because it means talking about prosperity while the account is in the red. It means talking about healthy relationships while you're alone. It means acting as if the desired future is already manifesting, even if there's no solid proof yet. But the masters understood that this is exactly the work. Create first in consciousness, keep the creation alive through focus and attention, ignore contrary evidence, amplify positive signs, and wait with the gardener's patience until the mirror completely reflects the new reality. These 4 secrets, working together, form the complete map of transformation. And consistently applied, they completely transform not just what appears in the mirror, but who's looking at it. Think with me, what's the identity you're projecting right now? Who do you believe yourself to be when no one's looking? That answer explains everything you've been living. And if you don't like the reflection, you already know what needs to be changed. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, now. Each moment you postpone is another moment feeding the old reality. Choose an area of your life that needs to change. Define who you need to be to live differently. Assume that identity today. Keep your focus on what you want, not on what you fear. Celebrate each small sign of change. And have the gardener's patience while the mirror adjusts. If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. We'll continue exploring the secrets of consciousness that transform realities.